No Josh Giddey, no Coby White, no Zach Collins, and the Chicago Bulls still get a solid team win against the Pelicans. We'll break down that win a little bit, where they won 134-118. We're also going to talk about who needs to continue to step up and why Billy Donovan may be surprised by Patrick Williams. All that plus an interesting trade target that a new rumors popped up about for the Bulls. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all, and I want to talk about the Bulls game last night against the New Orleans Pelicans. A little bit before that game, we got official word on about the length of time before Josh Giddey and Coby White are going to be reevaluated. Josh Giddey, who was announced that he'd missed multiple weeks, myself, I thought that could mean more like 3 or 4 weeks. Apparently, he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Now, I want to be clear here. Reevaluation does not necessarily mean that that's when he's going to get back on the court. When Zach Collins was reevaluated after his initial injury, I think it took another week before we actually got him back on the court. But that was a more severe injury, but I just want to make sure that I'm not setting the expectation that reevaluation necessarily means you get back on the court right away after that reevaluation. It's just that that's where they feel like some significant progress can be made, and then they'll be able to decide whether he can get back on the basketball court or not. Coby White also is dealing with that right calf tightness, which was downgraded from a strain, which is really good, and he's going to be reevaluated in a week. So that means another week without Coby White, which means he's probably going to miss another 5 to 6 games over that time period. And, we'll see. Coby White, it gives other players opportunities. This is an evaluation season, of course, anyway, with the amount of expiring contracts we have. So that opens up, to evaluate other people that are stepping in roles. We'll talk about that in a second. And then Zach Collins will be out, and he's going to be reevaluated in 10 days. So kind of between the 2 weeks of Josh Giddey and the 1 week of Coby White, Zach Collins is going to be back in there. So all in all, it doesn't seem like the Bulls are going to be down and out for too long. They'll be back up to full strength probably in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have everybody back out there on the basketball court, and then we can continue to see if that team that had got to 500, and fell one game below it before, of course, they get injured during a game, which puts them 2 games below 500. If they can compete back and crawl their way back up and fight. Overall, it's not an extreme amount of time. I was a little bit worried, like I said, that Josh Giddey was going to be out longer than what he ended up being. And so now you get those guys back out on the court, and we'll see what it's going to end up being. But with that said, I do want to talk about this game last night. The Bulls took on the Pelicans for the third time this season. A lot of people ask, why are they facing a Western Conference team 3 times? It's because of the way that the in-season tournament schedule works. Once you're eliminated from that, they just kind of filter in games where they can. They look at travel, stuff like that. So that's why we face the Pelicans for the 3rd time this season. But this was a game. First game without Coby, first game without Josh Giddey, that the Chicago Bulls had to play like a team. You had 8 players scoring double figures in this game, and a number of players just step out. And the Bulls, the thing that I was looking for a lot was what's the energy going to look like for the Chicago Bulls? And that doesn't mean you're going to win every game because you play with energy and effort, but they did not play with that after in the same game where Coby and those guys went and Giddey went down. So we're the wanted to see, were they going to keep up the effort in this game? And for what it's worth, the Bulls jumped out to a very, very early lead. Isaac Okoro, who scored a lot of points there to start off for the Chicago Bulls. He scored 16 points in the opening 2 quarters for the Chicago Bulls, leading the Chicago Bulls in scoring in that time period. It was crazy. He scored a season-high 24 points in that game. Trey Jones had 20 points, 12 assists, and the Bulls roster that was missing its starting backcourt still won 134-118. Now, the Pelicans don't have the best record overall in the league. We all know that, right? Nobody's going to gas that. They're 8-27, but they've had the Bulls number when we've played them. And Zion, he has to be averaging nearly 30 points a game against the Chicago Bulls. But the thing that I was looking for in this game, again, was the energy and how the system and scheme had to change with those guys being out. The pace was a little bit slower for the Bulls initially. They did only take 92 shots in this game, 43 of those being three-pointers. Surprisingly, they shot 51% from the field, 35% from 3 as a team. But it was a team that still felt very much so like they were fighting, like they were competing for something. Like this was a team that it mattered to them to come out here and play well. Modest Buzelis had 19 points. Jalen Smith had 14 points and 14 rebounds. Vooch had 17 as well, right? And you had all 5 players reach double figures, which is good. And then you had Patrick Williams even giving a big effort off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. So, it was good to see. We had our that we went to more so our usual kind of pace that we play with. After kind of the first quarter, we ended up scoring 25 points on fast breaks, which is really good. We held the Pelicans, on 60 points in the paint to 56 points in the paint. So we were keeping that part up as well. And listen, the Pelicans got into foul trouble, and then the game started turning physical, and the Bulls used that to their advantage as far as the foul trouble that the Pelicans had already found themselves in. The Bulls had the 97-90 lead in the fourth quarter, and then they changed that lead to 17 points and then just got out running. So it was good to see this team be able to get this level of win from it. And there were some things that definitely stood out. So I want to get into some of my takeaways from this game. Number one, Billy Donovan, who typically loves to run guard-heavy lineups, went for a starting lineup of the double bigs. Jalen Smith was starting at the 4. You had Modest Buzelis at the 3, and Isaac Okoro started at the 2 for the Chicago Bulls team. This is one of the bigger lineups we have ever seen Billy Donovan start off with, and I wonder if losing the rebounding of Josh Giddey is what made him want to do that, even though Trey Jones is a decent point guard rebounder as well. But I wonder if he understood, Billy Donovan looked at how much Josh Giddey's rebounding helps the Chicago Bulls and the pace that they want to play at. So he wanted to go that double big line to be able to get some of that, and it paid off. Jalen Smith in this game, 14 rebounds. Nikola Vucevic had 8. Modest Buzelis had 6. But I think that's overall very solid way to start off your team, especially against a team like the Pelicans. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting to see is this something that Billy Donovan is going to rock out now while Giddey and Coby are out? Is this only for this game where he played that lineup? We'll see what the Bulls do when they take on the Portland Trail Blazers. But it was good to see Billy Donovan recognize, hey, we still need some size out there. Let's start the double big lineup, and let's let that work for us. Keep in mind, without Zach Collins on the roster, the Bulls basically had no backup big at that point at all. They went into the game with no backup big, but they still balanced it. That's why you got to see Patrick Williams playing 20 minutes. More on him in a second, right? Got to see Javon Carter play 6 minutes. No Julian Phillips in this game. Dalen did play 10 minutes, though. But it was just good to see Billy Donovan recognize, hey, let me go, because this is a big factor in the way that we play basketball. Let's go and use this double big lineup and see how that works for us. So shout out to him for being able to start that. And with us going big, it allowed a lot more. The hustle was more evident that we saw out there, right? And when we got out in the open floor as well, because we were able to get out in transition because of our ability to rebound, it killed us, and it put the Pelicans on their heels a lot. So, the Bulls defense, it didn't look great at times. I'm not going to gas it and make it seem like all of a sudden our defense took miles and steps with the double big, but it does look like it was much better than the last 2 games that we faced off against the Pelicans, and that's great. And so when you look at it at halftime in this game, it was 67-62, but the Bull had the lead thanks to rebounding and speed. Us getting out, and we saw that. So the Bulls went out on a 7-0 run with 43 seconds left as well. It was great to see. Then a thing that we already knew that Billy Donovan has talked about, we knew coming into the season, the Bulls really leaned on their depth in that game last night, and you needed to. In a game where you are missing, as I've said, almost, 50 points per game between scoring and points generated off assists between Coby and Josh Giddey, you're going to have to double down on the players and your depth. The depth that you've said that you've trusted for the entirety of the year. The depth that we had to use early in the year because Coby and Zach Collins were out. And so with those guys out, Billy Donovan, hey, he did it, right? I would assume when Kevin Huerter, when they came into the game, came out the game and stuff, it was Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams was the next bench player to get into that game for the Bulls, and Dalen Terry was right after that. And for what it's worth, those top 3 bench players, I would assume in 25 minutes, 12 points. He was 3 of 11 from the field, so not a good shooting night as far as efficiency from him, but the 12 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. He had no turnovers and a block. Io maybe wasn't shooting extremely well. He got to the free throw line 4 times. That all helped the Bulls. Kevin Huerter was 2 of 5 from 3-point range. Keep an eye out for that. He's been shooting the 3 ball like ass this season. But in his 29 minutes, 13 points, 6 rebounds, assists, a steal, 2 blocks from Kevin Huerter, who was our second leading blocker behind Matas Buzelis. So you got to see that from those two guys. And then Patrick Williams. Listen, Patrick Williams, 20 minutes, 12 points. He was 4-8 from the field, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. He did have a turnover, but for what it's worth, Patrick Williams came in and gave the minutes that Billy Donovan liked. And Billy Donovan talked a little bit about it. He said this: I thought he played really well. He made a great play along the baseline. He had that dunk where he got fouled. He made some threes. Defensively, the ability to have him and Isaac Okoro out there, they got bigger bodies to throw onto Zion Williamson a bit. But I thought he played really, really well. I was happy and encouraged. We need him. I thought he contributed in a really good way today. And he did. I say all the hate that you will for Patrick Williams, and I get it. A lot of it's warranted, and it's definitely earned one way or another. But take away from that for all you will, Patrick Williams played well. And if you're going to be able to get a contribution, you're going to need somebody unexpected to step up, whether that's P. Will, whether that's Jalen some nights, whether that's Julian Phillips if he gets an opportunity. You're going to need those guys to step up in an unexpected way when you're missing as much production from Coby and Josh Giddey as what you have. So, shout out to the Bulls for being able to get this win. Like I said, it was a team win. One of the things I was looking at coming into this game, of course, was Matas Buzelis. Just 27 minutes, 19 points in that game. He was 8-17 from the field, so not a terrible night shooting. 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. No blocks from him, surprisingly enough. We did get 2 blocks from Jalen and 2 blocks from Isaac Okoro, but no blocks from Matas. But Matas even stepped up. He was our second leading scorer our third leading scorer last night between after Trey Jones and Isaac Okoro. So, you got contributions who you need from everyone. And the Bulls are going to have to continue to just double down on that over this stretch. If you look at it, right? Let's say Coby White, it was announced yesterday he's going to be gone for a week. That means Coby White is going to miss 4 more games. That means the earliest is you're looking at maybe January 7th against Detroit. That would be the official week mark. But we are on a back-to-back. We play on that Wednesday and Thursday, the 7th and the 8th. So let's say he returns in one of those games. You're still looking at him missing probably 4 more games. And over that time, it's Orlando, Charlotte, Boston, Detroit, and Miami on the 8th. That's our next 5 games. So, you're missing Coby for that amount. You're talking about Josh Giddey. That means he's probably not going to come back to the 14th, which is against Utah. Now, we do have a couple of days off between there. And then the 10 days, you're looking anywhere between that where Zach Collins is back. So the Bulls have a number of games before they're going to be back at full strength. And these matchups that they have are going to be tough. Or the Orlando Magic, say what you will, they're struggling, but they're still a team to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. They have, one of the best defenses in the league when they're on and playing well. That's our next game. That's coming up tomorrow. Then you got Charlotte. Hit or miss with Charlotte, but Charlotte's one of those teams as well you can't take for granted because they can put up points in a hurry, so you can never just assume anything against Charlotte. And then you get into a fucking goddamn a stretch there. Boston, a playoff team. Detroit, a playoff team. Miami, it's going to be a playoff team or a play-in team. We'll see. Dallas, yeah, they're not great, right? But let's keep in mind if Anthony Davis is playing in that game, which I don't know if he'll be back by then, it can make it interesting in the way that Cooper Flagg's playing. You got to look on that one. And then Houston. So, these next 5 games, of those 5 games, 2 of them are against non-playoff teams. That's Charlotte and that's Dallas. Other than that, you're facing off against teams that are competing for something this year. They may not have the best record, but aren't anything you can overlook either. So, the Bulls don't have the ability, now you can't play down to any competition. You got to come out and play and pull it all out on the field, on the basketball court every single game. So the Bulls have nothing that's going to be easy for them. And you're going to have to do it as a team. So you're going to need players to continually step up. Billy Donovan's going to have to continue to get creative with lineups. I think I love that we went with double big in this game. I think that was something that turned the tide. And then riding the hot hand, trusting players that you usually don't have to trust because of the depth. Trusting Patrick Williams, right? To keep going to him. He was a perfect 50% from the field. I would assume still being able to put up points, even being inefficient, right? All these things play into exactly where the Bulls are going to have to be and the margin that they're going to have to live within with Giddey and Coby White being out. So, we'll see what that looks like for this team. But, hey, no excuses. And, just like people would have said if the Bulls would have lost this game, it would have been like, no excuses. Every team has to deal with injuries. So you got to keep it the same energy. There's no excuses for this team. And we'll see what's going to happen here. Trey Jones had a hell of a game. And if Trey is going to be able to keep getting double-digit assists, and he just got to score in double figures. It doesn't have to be 20 every single game, But you're going to need Trae, I think, to stay between 12 and 14 as a starter with 9 or 10 assists. That's what you're going to need while Trae Jones is starting the point guard for this team. You're going to need him to have that level of production pretty consistently because we don't have a lot of players that can create their own offense. We just don't. And so because we don't have players that can create their own shot, it falls now on Trae even more to be that facilitator for like an Isaac Okoro and a Modest Buzelis and a Nikola Vucevic, right? Like Vooch, a lot of his buckets came off Josh Giddey assists. So now you're going to need somebody different to step into that and to be able to give you that role. And that's what Trae Jones is going to have to be now. And he's going to have to be that consistently for this Bulls team. If not, it's going to get a little bit tough. But when you look at Trae Jones, 5 of his assists went to Isaac Okoro, 3 to Nikola Vucevic. His 2 highest assisted players are 2 players that, if Isaac Okoro's cutting, if he has a lane, I love Isaac Okoro, not necessarily saying as a scorer, but I do like Isaac Okoro's ability to score when he's able to cut and try to get to the rim. That works. Same thing for Vooch. So that's what you just need to see for this team to continue. Trae Jones is going to have to be the engine of this offense in a different way than what Josh Giddey was, but we have that. And, for what it's worth as well, Modest Buzelis with the 2 assists that he had, 6 rebounds. You're going to need him at times to step as a point forward as well. So, the Bulls got some talent here. They got some things that they can do schematically to try to overcome the absence of Josh Giddey and Coby for a little while. But, I'm glad that Kobe's only going to be out for a week. You got Zach Collins back hopefully in 10 days. And then, probably another 4 or 5 days after that, Josh Giddey will be getting back. So, just let's make it through this period. I would love to save the Bulls over this 5, 6 game, 7 game stretch that they have. If they can go 3 and 4, it says a lot. If they can go 4 and 3 and be above 500, then they'll be at 500. So we'll see what they can do. You just got to lock in. And this is a tall test for this team to be missing these players, but they got the win. See how it's going to continue to go. With that said, though, I do want to talk about this last topic. This one comes from Pippen Ain't Easy, so take that for what you will. But they talk about Robert Williams potentially being somebody that the Bulls could target at the trade deadline, saying this. Injury is a recurring issue that has plagued Williams throughout his NBA career. Donovan Clingan is the Blazers' starting center, and the team has depth at position with Duop, Reith, and the 2025 first-round pick Yang Hansen. The Bulls can make a swing for a player who could walk away after the season if the fit isn't the best. He's 28, 7 years younger than Nikola Vucevic, with better rim running and rim protecting skills than the Montenegrin player. Williams won't make the Bulls a championship contenders, but for a team with so many issues on defense, adding a player of his defensive caliber could go a long way. He averages 6 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.4 blocks per game, shooting 67.9% from the field in 16 minutes per game. Okay, here's where we'll go. A lot of people have brought up Robert Williams, right? A lot of you guys have brought up Robert Williams, and I'm always of the mindset with Robert Williams is that skill set wise, he fits what the Bulls would want, right? A player that can rim run, that can play off of like the creation that's going to happen with Josh Giddey, Trae Jones, Coby White, that type of stuff. He fits in that. But what would it take to get Robert Williams? And then is that worth giving up an asset for an often injured player who also is just going to be a free agent at the end of the year? That's what this thing a lot comes back to me for with the Bulls. There are deals that the Bulls could make, but it comes down to what is worth giving up. And the reason why I say that is there's almost no chance that the Trailblazers are bringing back Robert Williams. Now, there are chances that other teams could definitely be interested in Robert Williams also, next year in free agency, but that's going to happen anyway. And even if you were to trade for him now, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I get adding him now to what the Bulls have and then taking a look and saying, hey, this is what you can do with more of the type of center that you want long term. But at the same time, it's like Robert Williams plays 16 minutes per game. And while I would love to see a more double big lineup be the starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls once we're fully back healthy, you got to ask yourself, trading for the $13 million contract of Robert Williams, is that worth it? Is that worth even giving up Kevin Huerter for because of the way and where you need Kevin Huerter at? Is it worth giving up Zach Collins for? I wouldn't give up Zach Collins for Robert Williams III, even though Robert Williams is a better projected defender and rim protector. And Zach Collins has been hurt this season too, but not at the level that Robert Williams is usually hurt, right? So will be willing to give up that. I doubt they'll take Patrick Williams back for Robert Williams. I highly doubt that's something that they want with the years left on Robert Williams' contract. So you sit in this place where it's like, okay, Robert makes some sense for the Bulls, and I'm not going to act like he doesn't. Even taking the health concerns aside, if you wanted to take a shot on a center that plays the style that you want and fits in that way, I can't hate it. But I just don't know if it's worth it and if it would be more worth it and more advantageous rather than having to give up anything then, I mean, and I guess you say if they take back Patrick Williams, then you're double dipping, right? Because you're getting a player that has less of a contract than P. Will. Then at the same time is that his contract doesn't go as long as P. Will. So even if you do re-sign Robert Williams, and all, he's not going to get P. Will money. But this is a player that's played 22 games this season. He's averaged 6 points in that game. I mean, in that period of time. And the rebound per minute, considering he gets almost 7 rebounds in 16 minutes, is actually really great. But this is a player that hasn't averaged over 20 minutes per game since 2022. Do you want to bet on that? And that's the place where I sit in it, where it gets a little bit less straightforward for me. But maybe that's just me. I'd love to hear from you guys on this one. If the Bulls were to trade for Robert Williams, what are you willing to give up for Robert Williams? And then, A, what would be your expectations on how much he can realistically help the Chicago Bulls this season? Does he help more than Jalen? Does he help more than Zach Collins? Or does he just free up to where you can now start Jalen maybe at the 4, and then you still have Robert Williams and Zach Collins coming off the bench? Let me know what you guys think about that. But all right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Let me know in the comments what impressed you the most with the Chicago Bulls win over the Pelicans. Was it the depth, the pace, the double big lineup, or was it something else on the team? Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification button if you want to be notified anytime we go live. You guys can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.